Hey everybody, this is Nick at Maker Playground, and today we're talking about safety and proper operation of the jointer. So a jointer is a machine that is used to create a square and clean and straight edge or face along a board in some situations. The jointer is basically an in-feed table, a cutting head, and an out-feed table. One way to think about a jointer is basically like a planer turned upside down. However, a jointer is one of the more dangerous pieces of equipment in the wood shop. On a jointer, you've got the infeed table, and then the cutting head right here, and then the outfeed table. And the cutting head is facing upward towards you and basically exposed to your material while you're operating, which is why it's very important that you are using proper operation of the jointer and alert and aware while you're using it. So when am I going to use the jointer? The right time to use the jointer is when you've got an edge on a board that is not perfectly square to the face, or maybe it's a little bit rough and you want to clean it up so you can get a nice smooth ride along the fence in the table saw. The other time is when you've got a board that has a little bit of twist to it. So if you're going to plane a board and it's twisted, then that twist can actually be continued through the planing process. If one side's twisted and you plane the top, that top side is going to actually just mirror that twist. It's going to replicate that twist on that side. So what you can do with a jointer is either edge joint like this to get this nice clean side, or face joint to take out the twist in one side before taking it to the planer. Once you do that, then you're going to create two parallel sides on the planer with no twist. The way a jointer works is, again, very similar to a planer. And if you look at the cutting head, it is basically just a smaller version of what exists within a planer. This one has 3 knives, and they are going to spin towards the material as it enters the infeed table, which is going to be slightly below the knives on the cutting head. That's going to remove the material nice and flat and square to the fence and the bed, and then exit on the outfeed table just like this. So that would be for face joining, edge joining, and I'm doing this with the guard moved and with my hands closer to the cutting head because it is both unplugged and the safety key is out. Otherwise, I would never be moving this and being this close to the knife. To adjust how much I'm taking off, we're actually going to adjust the height of the infeed table in relation to the cutting knives. To do that, we've got a release down here. So if it's tightened, it's going to prevent the infeed table from moving up and down. So you loosen it by turning it counterclockwise. And then you could adjust the height of the infeed table here. And that depth of cut or the height of the table in relation to the knives is going to be indicated right here. So when you're using this, this actually goes all the way up to a 1/2 inch. There's really no time when you're going to ever need that full 1/2 inch. In fact, it's typically going to stay right about here. So 1/8 of an inch is the maximum you really want to take off using a jointer. If you've got some sort of twist or a rough edge, that's going to need more than that. There are plenty of different ways to do that. But on the jointer itself, you're basically going to hang out in this area right here. So we could lower the infeed table to create 1/8 of an inch cut. But for the most part, we're going to stay about here at a 1/16 of an inch or here at a 32nd of an inch. In general, it's better to remove less material with the jointer as opposed to more. Once I'm done adjusting the depth, I'm going to retighten the screw here to hold the infeed table in place. But just like the knob that you use to adjust the infeed, there's a knob over here for the outfeed. However, that is really just for calibrating the machine while we're adjusting the head or replacing the knives. You should not have to adjust this knob in your operation of the machine. The fence on the jointer is typically going to be a very nice 90 degrees to the infeed table when you come over here. You're going to rely on that to be square to the bed because it's going to allow you, when edge jointing, to have an edge that is square to the face, or a nice, sturdy, stable place to stabilize your material if you're face joining and you're feeding it through this way. And you want to expose as little of the knives as is necessary for the task at hand. So if I'm edge joining, again, I'm only moving this out of the way because the machine is off, and to demonstrate where I want to put this. So if I'm going to edge joint, I'm actually going to release the hold down on the fence right here. and then slide it in to expose less of the cutting head. So about here, going to allow me to still push the safety guard out of the way, but not have a lot of the knives exposed. If I am face joining, again, this board is only about 3.5 inches wide. I can go up to 6 inches wide on this joiner. It's going to be something like this as it moves through, pushes the guard out of the way. The board is going to do that, not me. And then it is as it goes over the knives and comes out on the outfeed table here. And then when I'm done, I'm going to adjust the guard back for the next person. And generally, you're going to be keeping this fence at a nice 90-degree angle. There are some times where you might want to adjust that angle if you've got a bevel on the edge that you need to clean up. If you ever do need to adjust that angle, then you're going to release this knob right here and be able to adjust your angle in or out. If you do want to do that, I recommend using a little digital angle gauge. You can zero it out on the infeed table, set it here to adjust, to set your desired angle. But then when you're done, always return it back to a nice true 90 degrees. Before you use a joiner, here are a couple things to check. No loose clothing, nothing dangling, no necklaces, no lanyards. If you have long hair, tie that back. Proper eye and hearing protection. This is a fairly loud piece of equipment. And then also inspect your board. So you want to be aware if you've got, you definitely want to make sure you don't have any like screws or fasteners in your board or staples from the mill. If you've got a knot, that could be a problem area. You want to make sure that you're aware of that because it could behave differently as it's going through the machine. Then you want to make sure that your board is actually a proper dimension. So we'll show you about how to hold your hands as you're operating the joiner. That's going to be very important. But in order to make sure you have good grips and actually can support the material all the way through, you can't joint something that is too short. So 8 inches or more only. And then face joining with this down on the infeed, only material that is 3 inches or wider. And then edge joining, only material that is a 1/2 inch or wider. And this is all for your safety, not the safety of the joiner. Couple other things about using the joiner. You're always going to go with the grain, so never end grain, and also never wear gloves when operating the joiner. You want to really be able to feel what you're doing. You also don't want anything mildly loose on your hands like that could get caught anywhere or create slippage. So this is probably the most important lesson I can give you when operating a joiner is how to hold your material as you're actually using it. So I've talked about this a little bit, but you're really creating an opportunity where you're putting your hands at least relatively close to a really dangerous cutting head that in operation can be slightly exposed underneath your material. So in order to prevent any injuries, we're going to be really cognizant of where our hands go throughout this entire operation. So this is probably your most common use is going to be edge jointing a board on the joiner. As I do that, I've got a lot of area right here that I can hold my material down. Particularly I have the fence that I can help to keep it nice and square to the table, but I can also use that to prevent my hands from being in a position where they could ever slip into the cutting head. And then also on the way out, I've got a lot of area here on the outfeed table. So the big lesson here is that I never really need to be holding my material right over the cutting head. The reason for that is there can be, like this knot here for instance, can be something that the knives can grab and actually kick your material out. The safety guard is here to actually swing back into place, ideally before your hand could go down, but we want to avoid that ever being an issue. So as I'm feeding the board through for edge jointing, I am going to push it kind of in this downward angle down into the infeed table and also against the fence. So I kind of push like into this corner a little bit. And then you can see my right hand here, I'm actually kind of using the fence to make sure that my hand couldn't, like, if it slips down, it's just against the fence. It can't go down into the cutting head. So as I'm pushing it in, I'm securing it down. Now I get here kind of to a point where I'm no longer able to support the board fully. Instead of pushing down right here, I'm actually going to reach around the cutting head and start to feed it out on this side. And then I can do the same with my backhand as I go through. With a very long board, it's going to be kind of hanging off the edge out here. I'm still going to be pushing right here, supporting about half the length of the board. Say this were like a 6-foot board, and then still getting it to this point where it gets to the outfeed table, switch to here, continue to push, and then again, imagine this is a longer board, supporting it under about halfway through the board as I bring it off. Now, push blocks are going to be your friend with a joiner, but not when you're edge joining. So I am edge joining. It's going to be coming up like this. I don't want to be here. And the main reason for that is that if I do have the opportunity I'm pushing down, and there's not enough things between my hands and the cutting head. So I don't want to be here pushing down. Again, the risk factor is the board's going to kick out. If I'm face jointing, however, a push block is not only great, but also required. So as I'm coming in here, I've got making the knives exposed as I'm pushing it through. So I like to use the push block like this to kind of replace or protect my hand as I'm getting close to that cutting head. All right, so you need to use the joiner. The first thing that you're going to do is you're going to come find a staff member and you're going to get this safety key. We've talked a lot about how dangerous this piece of equipment is. So the safety key is not left in the machine because we don't want somebody to just come in here that doesn't know how to use it and flip it on. So you're going to come and you're going to get the safety key. Then you're going to get your machine dialed in. So you're going to make sure that your depth of cut is correct. You're going to make sure your fence is in the right position. And then you can put the key in the switch and operate the machine. So before I do all that, we're going to first demonstrate edge joining. So I am going to adjust the fence to expose as little of the cutting head as necessary for the job. With the machine off, I'm going to make sure that I've got my safety glasses on. I don't have anything dangling. I'm not wearing any gloves, and I've got my hearing protection. I've set my depth already to about a 32nd of an inch. And doing a final check, I'm alert, I'm awake, and the machine is plugged in. All right, now I'm going to put the safety key in just by pushing it in. Again, as I do this, I'm going to be very aware of where my hands are in relation to the cutting head. So keep in mind how I move my hands around and support the material down, holding it firmly both to the infeed table, to the fence, and then to the outfeed table. Okay, now we're going to demonstrate how to face joint. So I have the machine set up still for edge joining. So I'm going to need to expose a little bit more of the cutting head. I'm going to be extra safe, take the safety key out before I start messing with that. Release the fence, slide it back till I'm only exposing as much as I need. Lock it back in place. Grab my push pad, put the safety key back in, and here we go. So this is a somewhat rough side, and this is a clean jointed side. Now the real reason, again, to face joint is to take out a twist. So this is still going to go through the planer. So don't be too worried if you've got some marks or anything that aren't perfectly plane surface. This is not really meant for the finishing of the face as much as getting it ready for the planer, versus edge jointing really is meant as basically a finishing process or to get it ready for the table saw. Now I'm done using the joiner, so just a couple things left. First, I'm going to remove this safety key. I'm going to clean up the machine, any dust that I left on the machine or around the machine. If I've moved the fence, I'm going to move it back. especially if I've adjusted that angle on the fence. I'm going to adjust that back to a 90 using a digital angle guide or a machine square, and make sure in general that it's ready for the next person to use. If I've adjusted this up to an 1/8, really nice idea to go ahead and adjust it back to a 32nd of an inch so it's set to take the least amount of material off. And that's the basic safety of a joiner. If you ever have any questions about operating the joiner while you're here, please don't hesitate to ask the staff. So you'll never feel dumb about asking questions about a dangerous machine. If you're not sure if the joiner is the right tool for the job, or if you're setting up properly to use a joiner, never hesitate to ask.